everybody. Inking again. This is page 3 of Blue Orchid. So I think for a lot of you it's the middle of the night, but you know, I'm in a weird time zone. This is actually a really weird box for me. Normally I have stuff coming out of the box, but this one I have a few little rocks, so, but it's a lot of panels. It's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 panels. So I have to get a lot in this one page. So, yeah. Start off, jeez. I actually had to take apart my drawing table yesterday, so I'm a little sort of out of it. Oh, there's my, so you'll have to excuse me for a second. I got two things people don't talk about much in comic books is what I call my like scratch pad and my hand drawing pad piece of paper. And the scratch is literally, well, you can see I was doing a marker drawing. It's literally just where I could do a couple strokes with my pen before I draw. And then this is I put under my wrist when I'm inking, so that way I don't smudge as much. And I can move my hand around here, and I don't have to worry about like if there's anything there, I'll smudge the crap out of it, both pencil and. This blue pencil that I use doesn't smudge too much, but when I ink, it smudges like crazy. So I'm really bad at smudging, but the reason I'm getting this pad out is because, you know, I got this starting, every pen I sort of give a couple of strokes just to make sure, sometimes there's gunk on it, sometimes these Sharpie markers, which is what I do my outside with, they get rounded really quickly, and so I tend to not use those for doing my borders. The round, if they're a little bit used. This one's on the edge. I'll use it, but not for long. It's gonna probably see the second use piles pretty soon. The other thing I do is I give my ruler a little squitch to make sure that it doesn't smudge anything either. Now, I only use this, I have a giant ruler, I've got a smaller ruler somewhere. That's there, somebody with the rest of my rulers. But I only use this for the big spots here, the long lines. I don't know. I don't really actually know how to do this. I don't know how other people do this, if they ink it, if they do like 2 thin lines and fill it in. I found that a Sharpie length seems to be a good length for me, so. That is it for this big ruler. That's one of the only, I use that big ruler a lot when I'm drawing roughs, but I don't use it too much when I'm inking. I use it for like when I'm doing 2 or 3 point perspective, but I don't use it too much when I'm, like I say, when I'm inking. Actually, I do a podcast too with a friend of mine where we talk about making comic books, and we were talking yesterday about streaming live. And we were talking about whether we do it or not, and and I mentioned sort of doing what I'm doing right now, and. There's some interesting conversations. Some people use Twitch as well. I've lurked on Twitch. I've been a viewer of Twitch, but I'm not a user of Twitch for no particular reason, other than I think I saw a YouTube video on how to do this, and it just was like, well, that's everything I need, and just never sort of turned back. And that's why I stream on YouTube. So this is the only time I use rulers while inking. I actually hate using rulers while inking because I find that they're just a pain. They slow me down, and they don't give you a really nice sort of feeling of organic. Now, organic feeling to your drawings if you use them too much. A lot of people, I've seen a lot of artists that sort of complain that their art is sort of lacking in being organic. And they're like, why, how do you fix that? And I'm like, get rid of the ruler. And they're like, but then your line's crap. And I'm like, yep, that's the point. Kind of want your line to be crappy, to some degree. So, well, this, I would mention, well, you probably know what he was here. This it's a weird panel, because a lot of times I have stuff going out of my panel. This has very little, few little rocks down here, but between the panels, it's crazy. I just realized this little crab goes over, this rock's going over here, kind of goes over a little bit here. So, this is chapter 4 of Blue Orchid I'm working on right now. And this is, chapter 4 is the end of volume 1, if that makes sense. I'm going to do a collection of all the stories from chapter 4 at some point. Probably soon after I release chapter 4, you will be able to buy the collection of volume 1, which is chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4, as well as any short stories that I've done since, while doing chapter 1, 2, well, basically all the short stories at this point, because Blue Orchid is issue 1. Afterwards, I will do a volume 2 eventually. But I've got another project to go in between. This marker, this is it for this marker. This isn't it. Like, I'm not going to throw it away, but I will never use this marker again for doing comic book borders because it's too worn out. So there we go. The borders are done. So now I will get this little bad boy out and continue with my little patch up. I use, I've mentioned this before, I've got this Pentel brush pen, love it. Small. The refills are fairly easy to get, it's not weird. I think the refills just got too hard to get. So this one got sort of like regular pen refills. And I'm actually looking forward to drawing this page because I've been drawing the crab a lot lately and I like drawing Blue Orchid. And so I got some fun drawings to ink up with this. So I like this drawing. Hopefully I'll screw it up now with my inking. It's the biggest fear when you're drawing. It's how badly you're going to screw it up with your inks. I never liked inking. I don't mind it now, but I don't love it. But on the other hand, I love what it gives you, if that makes any sense. So, I'm doing this earlier than usual, so it's kind of quiet out there, isn't it? It's just like the middle of the night for most people. Sorry. I'm in, let's just say, I'm in Africa, but I'm in a European time zone, so if there's any Parisians there, I'm in your time zone. One of the things we talked about in the podcast was we did 2 episodes yesterday. We did 2. One of the subjects was what do you listen to when you draw? And we had all kinds of music we were talking about, and I will also listen to podcasts. However, I've completely stopped listening to music since I started doing live streams. So, only because I worry about copyright infringements, and I try and pay attention to what you guys, or if any of you guys chat, which happens sometimes. So if you're chatting and I'm actually, part of the reason why I'm not listening to music is because of you. It's a little weird when no one's chatting back, but I also understand because when I watch streams, I rarely will comment unless something really grabs my. I guess that makes sense. Like I don't want people just talking because there's words to be said. But if you actually have something to say, that's cool. I think I've only actually contributed once to a conversation in a live stream, and that's because the guy hinting using a really interesting tool. I just wasn't familiar with it. I maybe either missed it or he didn't talk about it because he didn't think it was that interesting because it was just a tool he uses all the time. And so I asked him what he was using and he explained it. It was really cool. I really appreciated the artist sort of taking the time to teach me about a new tool. And so because of that, that's probably part of the reason why I'm keen on not talking or not listening to music and ignoring my watching this. Ryan, it's just about lunchtime. I thought I'd try and get a page done before lunch. So, I've mentioned this before, but if you've never watched my live streams before, I sort of use several tools to ink, and everything organic, I tend to use a brush pen, and everything that's less organic, like rocks can be organic, and sometimes I will use it, but everything else, like rocks on the ground and buildings and stuff like that, I will use a fine liner. And I use various sizes. However, I have a system, which you'll see if you stick around or if you come back. Let's see how I sort of ink, because I like to have various lines. The only thing within Blue Orchid that I tend to use a fine line for and not a brush is her eyes. I could use a small brush if I really wanted to, but it's just her eyes. Her eyes are actually inspired off Little Orphan Annie cartoon strips. So that's where I sort of got the idea of how her eyes would work. It's just little circles. I don't know if it was me challenging myself to sort of see if I could do it or if I just sort of liked it. While I was sketching out early versions of her, I was sort of like, this kind of works. And so I just stuck with it. I don't really remember, but I did a bunch of designs of her before I even started drawing the comic. And eventually settled on this. I have a few of my early drawings of Blue Orchid, but if you go to my, I think my Instagram might have them. I think my, if you want to see like the early concept sketches, the most organized place I find is Pinterest, strangely enough. Okay. Hey, Kai Lavenbeek, interesting. And Fugitive, is it Iowa? I assume. Thanks for dropping in and dropping a line. Oh yeah, so if you want to see early drawings, my probably the best place to go is my Pinterest, because I think I've pinned just about every drawing I've ever done of her on there, and there's a section specifically for it where you can see all the drawings of her and sort of early concepts. If you buy, I think it's issue 1, which I have a copy of it right here. If you buy issue 1 of Blue Orchid, you can get that on Amazon. I think at the end I got some early concept drawings for her. I think, if I'm not mistaken, in the book, this one right here is the actual sort of, that's the one that was like, okay, that's where I'm happy. See, I went with like rounded, like really kind of funky things and all that, but that's where I was actually happy with what I did. So check it out. It's cool. It's my podcasting partner with that. Yeah, there's issue 1. You can buy the issue 1, 2, and 3 on Amazon. Totally available. There's a link in the description to where you can see all Blue Orchid stuff. Oh, I just forgot our fingers here. Speaking of Blue Orchid's fingers, when I'm drawing them, I cheat like crazy. Sometimes they're spiky, sometimes they're squares. Sort of draw her hands in any way that is needed at the moment. So if she needs to grip something, you know, you can even tell here, it's like, so these are her fingers here, and then these are her fingers here, and completely different, but I don't really care. I'm just having fun drawing it. The other thing I cheat all the time, and I talk about this, is I cheat the size, Blue Orchid's size, in comparison to the monsters. So her size, I guess, stays consistent in the city. So the monsters change size, and often the monsters change size depending on how well she's doing against them. So when she's losing, when she first sort of meets up with a lot of the monsters are quite large. They could be like bigger than buildings and stuff. But then when she starts winning, I draw the monsters smaller. And it's sort of a little bit of a, you know, just the idea of having her be bigger. Getting bigger is sort of a sign of her getting more powerful. But it is on purpose. I don't forget how to draw her and forget what size my monsters are. But I think it's more important that the monster's size is appropriate to what you want it to feel like than having any kind of reality in this. It's not necessary for it to have this like, well, you know, the monster is exactly 10 Blue Orchids tall or anything like that. I don't really see the point of that if your story can benefit from not having that. So. But you know, I mean, that's up to you. That's the beauty of indie comics, and that's probably why I'll never draw. I mean, I don't know if I'm good enough to draw a superhero comic like Superman or anything. It's not really my style. But I think that's why I love drawing Blue Orchid, because I can make up rules like that myself. I find the number one thing to do is do what you want in comic books if you're an indie comic creator. Make them any way you want, make your rules up, but don't cheat yourself. So by that I mean, don't be lazy on your own stuff. You can literally have stickmen for your characters. That's totally cool. As long as you're not being lazy, being like, well, I don't have the time to draw detailed things, or I want to get a comic done in 5 minutes so I'm going to go simple. But if you have a reason for drawing simple things, then do it. Like, that's going to help your story, if that's going to tell your story, whatever. And even it can be done for simplicity. Say if you're producing like 2 or 3 comics a day or something ridiculous like that, and you have to simplify your characters to get that done, by all means do it. And obviously also work to your skills. So do it at the level where you're comfortable, so that way you like doing your book. Because man, the number of people I've seen that draw comic books that then turns into this horrible, oh, I've got to draw a comic book today. It's like, man, remember when you were a kid and you were in math class? Killed to have a day where you had to draw a comic book. So, remember that kid but also like, you know, if your stuff's too complicated, it turns into like math homework. You don't want that. Unless you like that. You know, some people, look at some of the great comic book artists like Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, Stephen Platt was a great example of somebody who's like that. Those guys, man, they could do the detail like you wouldn't believe. I feel like they loved it. I heard stories of like those guys being on the phone, they would chat, and they would just have long calls with each other while they were drawing, sort of like this. I think that was like their bliss, because they could just sort of sit there quietly and chat with their buddies and spend 10 hours doing one panel. And the artwork they made is, some of it's brilliant. It's almost, I mean, I consider all of them to be better than mine, but some of their artwork is definitely better than others, and they've done some amazing stuff. So yeah, I'm not a big Spawn fan. I'm not a big Rob Liefeld's thing is, I don't remember the name of this. Youngblood, was it? Never really read them much. Just wasn't into their stories. Wasn't my bag, but respected the artwork. Eric Larson, Savage Dragon is another book that I, for some reason, just can't get into, but absolutely respect the artwork, totally. Maybe I tried once to read Savage Dragon. I picked up sort of omnibus of the first few issues, and actually got it at the library. That's why I start reading everything. I love libraries. If you're a library fan out there, give you a woot woot. But yeah, I read Savage Dragons. The first few issues, I was like, oh, don't get where this is going. I think it's already gone there, and so it wasn't my thing. But I don't think it's a bad comic, it's just not my thing. Actually, it's far from a bad comic. I think Eric Larson's an amazing storyteller and artist. I think he had a thing he wanted to do, and he did it well. Some of his other stuff is amazing. I was a big fan of the Spider-Man stuff. It always scares me. I have a little bit of a fear of this. One of the reasons I fear inking is because I have this weird thing that I've done where I use tones on top of this, but I don't use your regular sort of electrotones and stuff like that. I use pencil to tone my stuff afterwards. I have a page here that I've done recently. This is the last page I did. I toned it. You'll see all the pencil marks and stuff. And so the problem with that is using liquid paper is kind of not great. Because if you put the pencil tone on top of the liquid paper, it just comes out weird looking. So I often find myself, I have to do my best not to make mistakes, not to say that it doesn't happen. And then after I make my mistake, I just draw past it. I don't fix it. So I just add whatever lines are needed. And then I don't do this on this live. I will not tone this page here. I'll finish inking it on this live, hopefully, if it doesn't cut out. My last one cut out on me. But I will not tone it because I have to erase everything to do the tones, like all my blue lines, and I can't erase anything until after the ink dries, because I am the captain of smudging. And so it's inevitably going to happen if I do ink it before, is I will smudge the crap out of my drawing, and that'll look bad, and then I have to try and fix it, and I can't use liquid paper. So yeah, all that to say is if I make mistakes, I have to either liquid paper it after I've toned, or I have to Photoshop it. And the only reason I can liquid paper it is if I do not, sorry, I'm concentrating on inking halfway. The only reason I can liquid paper is if there's no tone there in the spot. If there's tone where the spot is, then I have to Photoshop it, because I can't afford to put anything on it. I can't, because the tone will not stick. It will not stick, it'll look crappy, and sometimes just won't work at all. So I should probably start doing these things in the middle of the night here. It's one of the disadvantages of being at weird time zones. I don't know, I might get weirded out if too many people watched. Still a little weirded out that people watch. I will watch somebody ink work. I've never watched somebody ink an entire page. So for anybody out there who's like, I'm just gonna watch this guy for a few minutes and then leave, more power to you. I could never ever watch somebody ink an entire page in my life. I've always sometimes gone back, but I get it. It's not exactly the most entertaining thing. And I'm sure my yammering is not highly entertaining either. So I get it. I totally get it. This is the smallest drawing of this crab that I've ever done. This one's a little smaller. It just keeps getting smaller and smaller. It's almost tempting to go to my smaller brush pen, but it involves stretching my arm a little 1 foot away from me. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to be brave and stupid. Brushes, in theory, you only need one size, because in theory, a brush can give you every size, right? To a point. So in theory, it's okay that I use a brush that might be too big. So the other thing about these crab guys, this crab guy is only ink his outside lines, his little tufts of, I don't know what the hell these things are called, but I noticed crabs kind of have these weird little tufts of things around their mouth. So I ink these, I ink the outside, and then the little crabby bits, segments, other than legs and arms, I ink with a tech pen, because they're just too small, and I'm cracks there, and it doesn't actually do much, but it makes me feel like I'm actually segmenting in. Notice my drawing here too. It's just one of the things I do is I always tell people I want to improve my drawing with each version. One of the things I noticed about this drawing is crab in past pages have had lots of bits of water glooping off of them, and I just didn't do any of these when I was drawing them. So I will add those when I ink. Nice thing is these inking doesn't have to be perfect. Just has to look good. That's all ink on the crab guy. Look at this. This is bonus. So I think in the last page I did, I used a brush to ink the crash cloud. So I'm going to do that again just to keep it consistent. Hindsight, I might not have done that every time, but since I did, I'll do it again. She crashes into the walls, keeps missing the crab. That's the story in this particular page. She's having a hard time because the crab's got a mean scuttle. So this is my first pass at inking. I ink it's in my way that I do it. I'll do 2 passes immediately. And so the first pass is with a brush pen and 1 fine liner, which tends to be a Sharpie pen. Sort of thin, fine Sharpie things. I love those. One of my favorite drawing tools. So brush pen, fine Sharpie pen. I do all of my passes at, that's my first pass. My second pass, I will be using mostly thicker tech pens. And that gives everything a little bit of depth, fine line stuff, and a bit of variation in line. And then that's when I stop once I'm kind of happy with the way it looks that way. And then I come back the next day after everything's dry, and I erase all my blue, and then I go over just to touch things up. So touching things up can involve sometimes when you erase your blues or your under pencils, whatever you're doing, sometimes you'll lose a little bit of the black. So you'll just touch that up a little bit to make sure that, because you know your main thing is you want it to reproduced the way you want it to. I photograph all my work. I do not scan it, only because I own a few cameras, but I do not own a scanner. And I also love the look of photograph stuff because it shows the grain of the paper and everything a little bit more. And I like my stuff to look like it was actually drawn by a human being. So yeah, so after I ink my first pass, I will so after it dries, I erase, touch up anything, and I'll be honest, throughout the day, today, I will leave this piece of artwork out, and occasionally I will walk past it and go, ah, you know what, I could have done that better. I could have done this better. I'll do them better. I'll fix them up a little. I allow myself that sort of freedom of fixing my art a little bit. Or I missed a spot. Missing a spot is quite common. Maybe I didn't make some, generally it's a thick line, I just didn't make it thick enough. You'll see when I get to the tech pen. I go over everything with a thicker line. Sometimes I choose maybe a line that's not thick enough. That could be thicker or something like that. So I fix. I don't need to get absolute perfection, but you know, something's gonna bother me, I'll fix it. I'll tell you one thing, drawing a crab scuttling is a lot harder than it. I'm getting a sense of motion. That was like, that terrified me when after I write on my comics, and then I figure out how I'm gonna make it work. And I'll design, generally I'll have like the designs of the monsters. I mean, the characters are down, pretty much have, Blue Orchid has about a dozen characters that can be involved. Most of the time though, it's just Blue Orchid, a monster, and occasionally the old man, who's the sort of main villain. It's been a moment, I probably could have used a smaller brush pen, but couldn't go. This is the points where actually I'm drawing with my ink and not just covering over a line, because when I drew her here, I really didn't give her much detail. Now's the time where I can do that. fix that up when I think I'll go for a little more detail. So this panel, and I did the crash clouds. I'm just gonna do the crab first. I did a little something here, which was, I think, kind of clever. I don't know if I did it on purpose, but I didn't add any detail to add some dark tone to the body to imply that I'm gonna put it in shadow. But I think the claw I'm not gonna put in shadow. I think it's kind of clever. It's gonna draw a little more detail into it, but I'm okay with that. I'll color it up a little darker. When I tone it, I'll add some tone, a lot of tone to that claw, but I just wanted to keep that detail in there. Out of my stupid decision, which I did earlier, of making, every time she crashes here, little smoke bits in the brush pen. And if I was making that decision today, I don't think I would do it, but I didn't, so here I am. I prefer consistency is important in that respect. It's ironic, I'm so consistent that I'll do that, but the monster size will change in every panel. I don't really care. Draw it based on the emotion of that particular scene, not based on anything like a model sheet that shows you the size of the monster compared. What you choose to be consistent about is your thing. Just make sure it's true to the story and makes it look good. Oh, look at that, I got a smudge. The smudging machine. That's it for the large brush pen. So, as I mentioned before, this is now where I take my favorite pen, the Sharpie pen. Actually, this one's working okay. They dry out a lot, so nothing's more frustrating than starting to do it and then realizing the pen's all dry. And we'll come back up to the first panel and start with our eyes, because that's a important thing for me. And I noticed when I was coming up with this rock goes right into her arm, creates a weird sort of line, so I'm going to get rid of that. I may not follow my rock design exactly, but that's okay too. Kind of want your rocks to be very randomish, and you have to obviously follow what's going on. You don't have to follow exactly what you did in the drawing if you don't want to. Like I say, obviously I have to connect your hands, all of her body parts that are hanging off the rocks here, but if you like something, by all means, just trace it. Thanks, Minshake. 327. You're a subscriber, awesome. Thanks for subscribing. And that one creative gamer girl, I've seen you here before, I think. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you guys subscribing and following along, and I know I post a lot of my stuff and get a few views and likes and stuff. Love it. Appreciate anybody supporting indie comics. So I support indie comics as well, so if you are an artist, make sure to drop it in my comments somewhere. Doesn't have to be here, but anywhere. Just send me a direct message with your stuff. I would love to check it out. I will read your book and all that. Sorry about being delayed on responding to messages sometimes. I love you guys. I'm so happy that you follow and comment. Just sometimes I'm looking at my drawings. I do have, like, you're watching this from here, but I actually have a monitor over here that I pay attention to stuff. I mentioned that in my podcast called Geek Shop, which we just recorded an episode. It's not out yet. We just recorded an episode about streaming, and one of the things I said was that I tend to have two places so I can pay attention. And a lot of streamers have problems with that because, you know, they'll only have the thing they're recording on, which is way up there, and can't, you know, I'd have to stand up and look every once in a while. But I don't have to. I can sit here and draw the whole time and see you guys. I also check the comments afterwards. I totally appreciate you guys. Sometimes I'm not looking directly at it. Somebody posted a whole bunch of stuff. See, I already noticed something on this. I don't know if I say this, but it's just cleavage. Sort of started drawing her cleavage less and less. I don't know why. And I did a few sketches and I sort of forgot to do it. Trying not to sexualize my characters, particularly a teenage girl. Middle-aged man sexualizing a teenage girl drawing is just not good. On the other hand, you gotta get some of the anatomy right. So this is I'm still working on my first pass of my inking. This is just using one size Sharpie pen. This is now getting my sort of less organic shapes done. Also closing some of these lines a little bit. You know what, I'm not a perfectionist when it comes to that. I do it as best I can. You'll see that backgrounds, the quality of my backgrounds changes depending on what's going on. If you've watched my first live stream that I did of this, you'll know that the first panel I make sure, when I'm introducing a scene or whenever she goes to a new place, I was trying to make sure I have sort of a somewhat detailed drawing. But after that, I go with the amount of detail that I need to tell that part of the story. So sometimes I will eliminate. I don't need to have every brick in there, I feel. And that's a personal thing.